And one of the people immediately coming to Phil Robertson's defense, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. Good evening, Governor.
Good evening, Greta. How are you?
I'm very well. Well, this is sort of an interesting debate that has seized the country. I mean, even Harvey Levin, I've known Harvey for, I don't know, 20 years. He's gay. He says that he supports Phil Robertson's right to say what he says, even though he disagrees. But it certainly has set the country on fire.
Well, yeah, and this is becoming a discussion now, I think, outside of the legal realm, letting attorneys decide whether it's a free speech under the rule of law or not. And now it's becoming more of a discussion within the exchange of ideas in the public and private square and in pop culture, whether we're allowed to express our personal opinions without threats of intimidation and mockery and criticism and loss of jobs and revenue. It's becoming a greater, bigger issue than what it started out to be just a few days ago.
I think people loosely use the term free speech, meaning that, that all of a sudden, people jump someone for saying something and that you don't jump others. I think that's sort of the inequity of, either we're going to let people trash talk or we're not going to let people trash talk. But on the same token, sort of let them, if the market wants to be such that people don't want to watch someone, so be it.
Well, that's right, and that's why I say, attorneys can discuss and argue whether it's a legal free speech issue or not, but I'm hearing a lot of people start discussing now whether in our, especially pop culture venues, whether we're going to be allowed without threats of a lot of intimidation and loss of opportunities to express our opinions.
Do you have, it's one thing to express your opinion. Do you have any problem, about the manners of how he said it? We don't talk about it on television much, but if you actually read the article, there's a rather graphic and at least I think, offensive description of it. There are two ways to say different things, and in the article, and I know he's a graphic type guy, but do you have any objection on the manners aspect, how he said it?
I haven't read the article. I don't know exactly how he said it. But, Greta, what he was doing was in response to a question about a lifestyle that he disagrees with, and yet he has said over and over again he doesn't hate the person engaging in a lifestyle he disagrees with, but in response, he was quoting the gospel. So people who are so insulted and offended by what he said evidently are offended by what he was quoting in the gospel. So, that's another interesting aspect in all of this.
Are you surprised by Cracker Barrel, which suddenly, which was appalled and apparently not so appalled now? Yeah, they were appalled until they realized that, the majority of Americans are saying, come on, you guys, thicken your skin and quit being so intolerant of people expressing public opinion and private opinion. Cracker Barrel then, after just 24 hours, I guess, of considering what they had done to pull items of Duck Dynasties off their shelves and decided, that a lot of the population is telling us that we made a mistake. It's kind of amazing that just within 24 hours they realized that. I think that they made a mistake 24 hours ago by pulling items off the shelf, reacting as they did so quickly. Governor, stay with us. Christmas Eve is just hours away, and people are fighting over Christmas in New York. An atheist group posted a billboard on a heavily traveled bridge. The sign features a question: who needs Christ during Christmas? And the answer: nobody. And in Texas, outraged parents accusing a high school of canceling a Christmas caroling tradition. They say it's because of the religious references in the songs. The school board says an ice storm canceled the caroling. And we're back with former Governor Sarah Palin, author of the brand new book, Good Tidings and Great Joy, Protecting the Heart of Christmas. And before we get to your book, Governor, I'm curious, this whole sort of, this fight over Christmas and when people are going to be able to express themselves and when they're not. Your thought?
Well, there certainly is a war on Christmas, and it's the tip of the spear on a war of even a greater issue, and that is expression of faith and being able to live out the Christian faith, or no faith at all, any faith that a person would choose. There certainly is that war in our culture today, and I wrote about that in the book.
Why do you think that war is there?
I think that people are offended, some people, at the idea that we aren't all that. We're not the center of the universe. And we, as fallible, mistaken man, we should be serving something greater than self. Our world would be a lot healthier, more peaceful, safer place if we were all to be more selfless and serve something greater than self, i.e. our Creator. And I think that that idea is really offensive to a lot of people, especially the elites who kind of control much of the media, much of politics, because they do think they're all that. They think that they are the hope, the change, the answer. They think they can create utopia when, you know, most of us who are humble enough to admit that man can't do that. We're so fallen that we need a savior. We need something to look to for strength and hope and peace and joy. And a lot of us look to God for that.
You know, I'm always surprised. I mean, there certainly is room for everybody. That's, so why people are jabbing each other, for having a faith is beyond me. I mean, like, there really is room, for everybody. And yet, for some reason at this time of the year, people decide, come out and jab people, and I just don't get it.
If they jab people, they waste a lot of money, like that billboard. Why didn't they take the money they were going to spend on trying to offend Christians or anybody who believes in Jesus being the reason for the season? Why didn't they spend that money on helping the needy, helping the poor? I think that was a waste of resource.
Well, it might not be a bad idea. All right, now to your book, and I might add there's some recipes at the back of the book. This book has a little bit of everything. Recipes on the back. Also quotes from President Ronald Reagan and Martin Luther King. But it also gets very personal. In one part of the book, you write about a very personal time in your family's life with Bristol, and you talk about being able to sort of admit you're wrong.
Yeah, I think that is some of the heart of Christmas, is being humble enough to admit that, again, we're not all that. We don't have all the answers. In that episode that I was reflecting upon, when Bristol came to us to tell us that she was going to have a baby, and Todd and I argued over what should she do next. I thought she should get married, and Todd said, no, there's already been a heap of trouble piled on her plate. Let's not encourage more heaping of more trouble on her plate. We argued about it, and then I realized he was right, and he was right. Humbled myself and told him that, and reflected upon that in the book, and that again has a lot to do with that humbleness of Jesus being born in a manger, not as some lofty king who came down amongst privilege and in your face kind of lecturing of everybody else in the culture in which he was a part of. And much of the spirit of Christmas has to do with being humble enough to accept that and have that childlike faith to know that it was real.
What stood out to me in the book is that you and Todd have a disagreement and an argument about this. And it's obviously from reading the book that it's painful. And then you write, when Bristol's son arrived, he melted into our arms and melted my heart. My little girl had given life to this little boy. In less than ideal circumstances, he turned our little world upside down and for the better.
Yeah, he sure did. And that was, that's just a small episode in our lives, that the case of Bristol having the baby, but it's turned into be part of our foundation of our family and a very important part of our life. And when I consider that people all over this country are facing such challenges, greater challenges than, an unwed pregnancy being a contribution to their family's foundation, but people facing such challenges, Greta, they need encouragement, they need empowerment. The book reflects a lot of how it is that we can feel encouraged and empowered, again, by humbling ourselves and looking to something beyond self.
You know how I read that? I read that as that we get ourselves all whooped up about problems, all whooped up, and then as they sort of unfold, and as we sort of, come to terms with them, you used the term, of course, showing mercy is painful, meaning that when you and Todd sort of, worked it out, is that, like, if we would just sort of ride through it, there's like, sometimes we make a bigger problem for ourselves, and in the end, we might be a little bit enriched if we, at the other end of this.
Yeah, we always do, I think. For the most part, when something hits us and stops our world from spinning for a moment there, you know, we think that it's the end of the world. And then you can look back on the episode and realize that if you sought the greater good in that episode of life, you do find out that it can be used, though it was in less than ideal circumstances, for a greater good, to help your family, your business, your community, the world become a better place if you have the right perspective on what these challenges are.
Well, there's a lot more in the book. People should read it about the great things that happen in Wasilla around Christmas, as well as the soup kitchen and everything. Also, the Merry Christmas chili recipe that is recommended at the end. Anyway, Governor, thank you very much. Brand new book. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry